Title: The Voice Inside the Black Wardrobe. The moving day. Aidanah was 24 years old. After starting her new job, she moved into an old apartment on the outskirts of town. The rent was cheap, but the place wasn't in great condition. One thing stood out: an old, tall black wardrobe in the bedroom. It was built into the wall, with no visible keyhole. Apparently, no one had ever lived in that apartment for long. The neighbors avoided talking about it and gave strange, wary looks. Aidanah didn't pay much attention. She was tired, so she lay down on the bed and slowly drifted off to sleep. The first night, it was midnight. Aidanah was dreaming. In her dream, she saw her bedroom, the same black wardrobe in the same corner. But this time, the wardrobe door slowly creaked open. Inside wasn't just darkness, it looked like a bottomless void. And from within, a whisper echoed. "Can you hear me?" Aidanah woke up in a cold sweat. Her eyes darted to the wardrobe. The door was closed. But then a faint sound came from inside. It sounded like someone whispering softly, "We are not alone." The search. The next day, Aidanah started researching the apartment online. In an old newspaper archive, she found something chilling. In 1991, a girl who lived in that apartment had gone missing. Her father had broken the same black wardrobe apart, but nothing was found inside. Not long after, he reportedly went mad and died. Aidanah decided to open the wardrobe. She pulled at the door, it didn't budge. Then a sound came from within, like scratching. Again, scratch, scratch, scratch. Real terror. At nightfall, Aidanah sat staring at the door. This time, the voice was louder. "Free me. Why won't you free me?" Suddenly, the wardrobe door began to move. She wanted to scream, but no sound escaped her lips. When the door finally opened, there stood a figure, shadowy, wrapped in black mist, shaped like a human, but not human. Its eyes glowed red in the darkness. "You've come to my place," it whispered. The door that closed again. The next morning, neighbors noticed silence from Aidanah's apartment. When police arrived, the door was locked from the inside. Everything was untouched, except for one thing. The black wardrobe was wide open. From inside came a faint girl's voice. "Who's next?" The whispering mirror. Detective Maria Klein was assigned to the case the morning after Aidanah vanished. She had seen strange things before, but something about this apartment felt wrong. The air was thick, like the walls themselves were holding their breath. She stepped into the bedroom and froze. The black wardrobe stood open, its interior still pitch black despite the sunlight pouring in. No signs of struggle, no fingerprints, just silence. Then she noticed something odd. Across from the wardrobe, there was a mirror on the wall, an old, oval-shaped one with a brass frame. She leaned closer. In the reflection, the wardrobe was closed. Maria turned around. It was open. She looked again. Open behind her, closed in the reflection. And then the reflection changed. It wasn't her reflection anymore. A pale girl stood in her place, with hollow eyes and tangled black hair. Her lips moved, but there was no sound. Maria stepped back, heart pounding, reaching for a gun. Suddenly, the voice came, not from the mirror, but from the wardrobe. "You shouldn't have come alone." The hand from the dark. Detective Maria Klein froze as the cracked mirror shimmered strangely, the hairline fracture pulsing like a heartbeat. The air in the room grew colder. Every breath she took felt like inhaling frost. She turned fully toward the wardrobe. The inside was pitch black, but something had changed. There was movement. Slow, deliberate. A pale hand emerged from the void, its fingers long, thin, and trembling, as if it hadn't touched the living world in decades. The nails were dark and cracked. The skin, bluish, almost translucent. Maria instinctively raised her weapon. "Identify yourself," she shouted, her voice shaking more than she wanted to admit. No answer. The hand retracted slightly, then suddenly slammed against the frame of the wardrobe, hard enough to make a loud thud echo through the walls. Books fell from a shelf nearby. She stepped back, but not far. She had seen something behind the hand. A face. Not the ghostly girl from the mirror. Something worse. Something inhuman. Its eyes glowed red like hot coals buried in ash, and its mouth stretched too wide, too far down, like its jaw was broken. Then it spoke, but not out loud. The voice filled Maria's head like a scream underwater. She opened the door. You cannot close it now. Her phone buzzed. A message. She pulled it out with trembling hands. It was from Aidanah's number. But Aidanah was gone. The message read, I'm still here. Behind the door. Don't leave me. The choice. Maria stood frozen in the middle of the room, staring at the message on her phone. Her fingers hovered over the screen, unsure whether to reply or run. Every instinct in her screamed to leave. Call for backup. Burn the place down. But the message from Aidanah, it wasn't random. It came from inside. She looked at the wardrobe again. The hand had vanished. The interior now sat still, a silent, black rectangle of nothingness. It felt like it was watching her, breathing. Maria glanced at the mirror. The crack had grown, and now, in the reflection, she was gone. The mirror showed an empty room, except for one thing. In the reflection, someone stood inside the wardrobe. Aidanah. Her mouth was moving again, this time with words Maria could almost read. Don't let it shut again. Then, the reflection shattered completely. The mirror exploded outward, shards flying like daggers. Maria shielded her face just in time. Blood trickled down her cheek where a sliver had grazed her skin. And in that exact second, the wardrobe door slammed shut. Boom! The sound rattled the entire apartment. Dust rained from the ceiling. Lights flickered. Maria stumbled toward the wardrobe, yanking at the handle, screaming, Aidanah! It wouldn't budge. Then she heard it. 3 knocks. From inside. Knock, knock, knock. And then silence. No breathing. No whispers. No presence. As if the thing inside had gone to sleep again. Waiting. She dropped to her knees, breathing hard. The door was shut. But something told her it would open again. And next time, it wouldn't want to talk. The carpenter's confession. It took Maria 3 days to track him down. The man who built the wardrobe. His name was Elias Marr, a retired carpenter now living in a remote, crumbling farmhouse on the outskirts of the state. The townspeople called him the Wood Ghost, not just for his reclusive nature, but because people claimed he'd gone insane after working on that house. Maria arrived in the late afternoon, her face still bandaged where the mirror had sliced her. The air was dry, brittle. The sky, gray and low. She knocked on the crooked door. No answer. She was about to leave when the door creaked open. Elias stood there, gaunt, hunched, his eyes pale and unfocused. But the moment he saw Maria's face, he flinched. You've seen it, he whispered. Maria nodded slowly. The wardrobe, she said. Tell me what it is. He stepped aside, motioning her in without a word. Inside, the air smelled of aged wood and smoke. Furniture lay draped under dusty sheets. But at the center of the room stood a small model of an apartment, hand-carved, precise, detailed, and at its center, a tiny black wardrobe. You didn't build it, did you? Maria asked quietly. No, Elias said, his voice hollow. It was already there. He sat down, hands trembling, and finally began to speak. I was hired in 1974 to renovate the building. The owner said it was old, too old. The bones of the place weren't right. The bedroom was the worst. That wardrobe, it was part of the house. Not built, grown like a tumor. We tried removing it. 5 of us. It wouldn't move. Not an inch. He looked up, his eyes wet. One of my men, Carl, he opened it one night. Said he heard something. We found him the next morning. Eyes gone. Mouth torn open. Like something had crawled out of him. Maria's hand instinctively reached for her gun. I sealed it, Elias continued. With iron screws. Sigils carved in oak. But then the building was sold. The new owners remodeled. Painted over the seals. Took out the screws. Opened the door again. He leaned closer, whispering now. It doesn't kill at once. It waits. It learns the voice of the last soul it took. Then it calls the next. Maria's throat tightened. Aidanah, she murmured. Elias nodded grimly. She's still inside. But she's not alone anymore. Maria stood. Her mind was spinning. Rage, horror, guilt. She had heard the knocks. She had read the message. Aidanah's voice, it wasn't just a ghost. She was alive. Can it be reopened? She asked. Elias was silent for a moment. Then, yes. But if you do, you better have a way to close it. Or we'll come through. Maria stepped out into the wind, gripping the model of the apartment in her hands. The door would open again, but this time she would be ready. Into the black. The rain began as a whisper. By the time Maria returned to the apartment building, it was coming down in waves, cold, sharp, relentless. She parked her car in the alley behind the complex and stared up at the window of Unit 3B. A single curtain swayed behind cracked glass. No lights, no movement, just silence. She stepped out, soaked within seconds, her boots splashing against the broken pavement. She carried nothing modern, no phone, no flashlight, no gun. Instead, strapped to her back was an old leather satchel containing items Elias Marr had given her. A rusted iron key, a small mirror wrapped in red cloth, 3 hand-carved oak totems, inscribed with protective sigils, and a page torn from an ancient journal, with one sentence circled in black. Do not forget your own name. The building groaned as she stepped inside. It smelled of rot and mildew, like a forest left to die. Her footsteps echoed up the stairwell, each creak and thud magnified as if the walls were listening. When she reached the door of 3B, it was already ajar. The room was exactly as she left it. The broken mirror, the bookshelf knocked over, the wardrobe shut tight. But the air was wrong. It moved. She could feel the pulse of something alive, just beyond the wood. Maria lit a candle from her satchel and placed the totems in a triangle around the wardrobe. She whispered Elias's prayer in a language she didn't understand. The wind outside screamed louder. Somewhere below, a dog howled and was abruptly silenced. She touched the wardrobe's handle. Cold. Too cold. Then it happened. Not a voice this time, but a breath. A real one. From behind the door. Aidanah, Maria whispered. If you're there, I'm coming in. She inserted the iron key into a slot that hadn't existed the day before. Click. The door creaked open. A wall of black fog spilled out, swallowing the floor, the walls, her knees, her chest, until everything disappeared. Maria stepped through, and the door closed behind her. The shadow apartment. Darkness had texture. It wasn't just the absence of light. It moved, curled around Maria's arms like smoke made of breath. For the first minute, she couldn't tell if she was falling or floating. Her feet felt the suggestion of ground, but it shifted under her like a dream fading too fast. Then a light. A single, flickering bulb swaying overhead, casting a dim yellow halo. As her eyes adjusted, Maria realized she was back in the apartment, but not the real one. This was a mirror world, twisted, rotting, and wet. The walls sagged, pulsing like flesh. The furniture was the same shape, but made of black wood and bone. The smell of mold and grief clung to everything. And the wardrobe behind her? Gone. No door back. Only forward. She took one cautious step, then another. The hallway stretched longer than it should, impossibly so. At the end of it, a girl stood in front of a shattered window. Thin, pale, hair dripping as if she had just climbed out of a lake. Her back was turned. Aidanah, Maria called softly. The girl flinched, then turned around. It was her, but her eyes were gray. Not just dull, empty, like the light had been drained from within. Her lips parted, and she spoke in a flat, echoing voice. You shouldn't be here. I came to get you, Maria said, stepping closer. The girl shook her head violently. It's listening. The walls groaned. Maria reached for the mirror in her satchel. Elias said it would show the truth. She unwrapped it slowly and held it up. In the reflection, Aidanah's face was smiling. Too wide. Her skin cracked like porcelain. And behind her, a creature with no face, only a mouth, rising tall behind her, black limbs curling toward the ceiling. Maria dropped the mirror. When she looked up, the room had changed again. Now there were dozens of doors around her, all identical, all slightly open, and from inside each one, whispers, faint voices begging, crying, singing lullabies in reverse. Aidanah pointed to one. That's where I'm trapped, she said. But if you open the wrong door, it takes you instead. Maria clenched her fists. Then let's choose together. Aidanah didn't answer, because she was no longer there. Only her shadow remained on the wall, and the whispers grew louder. The doors that whispered. Maria stood in the center of the endless, rotting hallway. The walls pulsed softly, wet, breathing. Around her, doors. All the same, all slightly open, each whispering in a different voice. Some sounded like children, some like broken radios. One spoke in her own voice. She stepped closer to the first. Inside, flickers of light moved across the floor, shadows dragging themselves. She reached, paused, and moved on. Second door. The whisper was clearer. Help me. It sounded like Aidanah, but too calm, too flat. Wrong. Third door. Laughter. High-pitched. Cruel. Unnatural. She opened it. Nothing but darkness. Then a pair of hands reached out, grabbed the door frame from the inside. Nails like knives. Skin like ash. She slammed it shut. Behind her, a new door appeared. Then another. The hallway was growing. She started to run. The whispers followed. Each door she passed, open on its own, until one voice stopped her. Maria. It was Aidanah. Not a whisper. Real. Human. Maria turned. One door. Still shut. No whisper. No shadow. Just silence. She placed her hand on the knob and opened it. The room that remembers. Maria turned the knob. The door opened with a sound like bone bending. No scream. No rush of wind. Just quiet. Inside, the air was heavy. Not cold, but dense like standing underwater. The room was dim, lit only by a flickering lantern resting on the floor. The walls were cracked, smeared with handprints, names carved deep into the wood. Some were fresh. Others had been there for decades. In the center of the room sat a chair. On it, Aidanah. She was real. Not a shadow. Not a dream. She was curled into herself, her arms wrapped tightly around her knees. Her hair was tangled, skin pale, but her eyes, they still had life. When she looked up, Maria felt tears sting her own eyes. Aidanah, she whispered. Aidanah blinked slowly, as if waking from a deep sleep. You came. Maria crossed the room, knelt beside her. Yes, I followed your message. I saw you in the mirror. Aidanah's lips trembled. I didn't send the message. It did. Maria froze. Aidanah grabbed her hand. Listen to me. This room isn't safe. None of them are. But this one, it's different. She looked around, her voice dropping to a whisper. This room remembers. Everyone who ever entered the wardrobe ends up here. Some are alive. Most aren't. But the room holds their voices, their pain. It feeds on it. Maria felt the walls shift. Suddenly, one of the names etched into the wall moved. The letters writhed, reforming themselves into something else. Maria Klein. Her own name, scratched in fresh blood. She backed away, heart hammering. I'm not supposed to be here long. Aidanah continued, breathing faster. It lets me wake up sometimes, but it wants to keep you, to trick you. Maria stood, scanning the room. The wardrobe, it was in the far corner, but it was twisted. Its surface rippled like black water. Something inside pulsed. Alive. That's the way back, Maria said. Right. Aidanah shook her head. No, that's the mouth. If we open it again, it won't just let us out. It'll follow. Maria looked down at the satchel hanging from her side. The final item Elias gave her, a carved wooden seal, marked with symbols older than language. It could close the passage forever, but only from inside. You have to go, Aidanah said. Alone. No, Maria snapped. I'm not leaving you here. You'll die. I've seen it 1,000 times. The door opens, the light comes in, and the person who stays behind disappears. The walls began to shake. The door behind them slammed shut. Then the whispers came again, only now they were screaming. Hundreds of voices. Begging. Weeping. Laughing. Aidanah covered her ears. The wardrobe began to open. Just a crack. Enough for fingers to slip through. Fleshy. Long twisting. Maria pulled the seal from her bag, hands shaking. The wood began to glow. Aidanah, if we do this, we do it together. The thing inside the wardrobe pushed harder. Its voice was like a blade scraping against glass. You don't belong to the light anymore. But Maria shouted louder. She grabbed Aidanah's hand and stepped forward, straight into the wardrobe's dark mouth, and slammed the seal against the inside wall. Everything turned white. What came through? There was no falling. No sensation of movement at all. Just light, endless and blinding, swallowing every sound, every thought, until even Maria's fear vanished into it. Then, as if pulled from deep water, she gasped awake. Her lungs burned. Her eyes stung. She was lying on a hard wooden floor. The ceiling above her was cracked, water-damaged. A weak light flickered overhead. The air smelled like old paint and dust. She knew that smell. 3B. She sat up fast. Aidanah. A small cough answered from behind her. Maria turned and saw Aidanah curled up against the wall, alive, awake, and breathing hard. Her eyes were wide, scanning everything. "We're out," she whispered. "We made it out." Maria smiled through the exhaustion. She crawled to her and hugged her tightly. "You're safe now." But Aidanah didn't hug her back. Not right away. Her voice was distant when she finally said, "It didn't follow us." Maria pulled back. "What? I thought it would. I was sure it would." Before Maria could respond, a strange buzzing sound echoed through the room. The wardrobe, now back in its original form, sat tightly shut, unmoving. It looked ordinary again, just a tall black cabinet. Then the air shifted. A breeze. From under the door. Cold. Maria stood, her legs shaky. She walked to the wardrobe and slowly knelt down. That's when she saw it. On the floorboards beneath the door, wet footprints. But not theirs. Too large. Bare. Misshapen. Wrong. She backed away slowly. "No," she whispered. "No. We sealed it." Aidanah rose to her feet, her voice now firm. "Not completely. We closed the door, but something squeezed through. Just before the seal hit, the apartment creaked. A glass fell from the kitchen counter. Somewhere in the hallway, the old elevator dinged. And from the bathroom, a whisper, one they both recognized. Maria's voice. "I never left." Maria turned pale. Aidanah whispered, "It's wearing you." The reflection that breathed. Maria didn't move. Neither did Aidanah. They just stood there, staring at the bathroom door where the whisper had come from. Her own voice. It had said, "I never left." Maria's pulse pounded in her ears. Her skin crawled with a fear she couldn't explain, not from what she saw, but for what she felt. Something was wrong in the room. The air was heavier, yes, but it wasn't the weight of gravity. It was the weight of something watching. Slowly, Maria stepped toward the bathroom. "Aidanah, stay here," she said quietly. "No," Aidanah replied. "If it's pretending to be you, it already knows everything you know." Maria hesitated at the bathroom door. The mirror inside was old, cracked in one corner. She had barely looked at it since moving in. She stepped in. Her reflection stood still. Too still. Maria blinked. So did the reflection. She raised her right hand. It raised the left. Aidanah gasped from behind her. "It's not you." The reflection smiled. Maria didn't. Its eyes turned darker, then black, then empty, and then it stepped forward. Not inside the mirror. Out of it. Glass didn't shatter. It simply melted away like water as the thing that wore Maria's face climbed out. First its head, then shoulders, arms, legs, but as it emerged, its body stretched unnaturally long. Fingers cracked sideways. Its neck bent twice. It grinned wider now. She left the door open. Maria stumbled back, grabbing the iron seal from her satchel. It had stopped glowing. The figure tilted its head. "You can't send me back," it hissed. Aidanah ran forward and slammed the bathroom door shut. They both braced against it, but the handle twisted violently from the other side. It shrieked like metal warping under pressure. "What is it?" Maria cried. Aidanah was shaking. "It's not just a shadow. It's a copy. It took your voice first. Now it's trying to take your body." Bam! The door cracked. Bam! Another crack. Then silence. The knob stopped turning. They waited. 5 seconds. 10. Nothing. Slowly, Maria opened the door. The bathroom was empty. The mirror was whole again. But on the floor, written in red water, "If you're the real one, prove it." And in the living room, they heard a sound. Footsteps. 2 Mariahs now stood in the dark. And Aidanah didn't know which one to shoot. The 2 Mariahs. Aidanah's breath hitched. She backed away slowly, eyes flicking between them. The 2 Mariahs standing in the middle of the apartment, motionless. Same face, same clothes, same voice. But one was a lie, and she had no idea which. The Maria on the left spoke first. Aidanah, it's me. You know it's me. We came out of that thing together. The Maria on the right didn't move, didn't speak, just smiled. Aidanah gripped the iron totem in her hand, the one Elias had told them to use if they were ever unsure. It would burn in the presence of anything not human. But what if both touched it? What if the creature had adapted? She couldn't risk it, so she spoke. What was the first thing you said to me when we met in that place? Left Maria. I called your name. I said I was here to help. Right, Maria? Still silent. Aidanah turned to her. And you? Right, Maria's smile widened. I said you shouldn't be here. Her voice was colder now, almost mocking. The air dropped 10 degrees. Suddenly, both stepped forward. Left Maria shouted, "Don't listen to it." Right, Maria shouted, "She's lying." Aidanah pulled the totem from her pocket. "Touch it. Now. Both of you." They both froze. Left Maria hesitated, but stepped forward and grabbed the totem. No reaction. Right, Maria did the same. Still nothing. Aidanah's hands trembled. "It's not working." Left Maria grabbed Aidanah's shoulder. "Please. It's me." Right, Maria did the same. "Don't be fooled. You'll regret it." Two voices. Two hands. Two heartbeats. But only one soul. And then, a crack. A hairline fracture spread across the mirror on the wall. And only one Maria blinked. The other just smiled. The one who didn't blink. The crack in the mirror grew. Aidanah saw it out of the corner of her eye. Only one Maria reacted. The other just smiled. No blink. No twitch. No fear. Just stillness. Dead stillness. Aidanah's breath came shallow. She looked at the Mariahs. Left. Right. Both now standing inches apart. Identical. But something was off. "Tell me something only I would know," she demanded. Both responded at once. Same words. Same tone. "You cry in your sleep. You whisper your mother's name. You still think it's your fault she died." Aidanah flinched. Tears welled in her eyes. "No one knows that," she whispered. "I do," both Mariahs said. The lights flickered. A glass shattered in the kitchen. A chill spread across the floor like spilled ink. Aidanah couldn't breathe. She clenched the totem tighter, still no glow. Then she looked at the mirror again. The crack had stopped growing. It pointed directly to the right Maria. She remembered Elias's words. Mirrors remember the soul. They can't lie, only reflect. Her voice barely rose. "Step in front of the mirror." Both Mariahs obeyed, but only one reflection followed. The other? Nothing. No image. No shadow. No soul. Aidanah turned, stepped back, and raised the iron totem high. The fake Maria lunged, face twisting, mouth splitting open, skin melting in a black mist. But it was too late. Aidanah struck. The totem ignited in flame. The creature let out a soundless scream as it dissolved into smoke. Silence. Only the real Maria remained, collapsed on her knees, exhausted, tears running down her cheeks. "You chose right," she said softly. Aidanah dropped the totem and hugged her. "I just remembered," she whispered. "Shadows don't blink." The floor beneath the blood. The silence that followed was unreal. No whispers. No creaking walls. No cold air. Just the dim hum of a through the window, and the heavy breathing of two girls who had seen something no one would ever believe. Aidanah knelt beside Maria, still holding her close. The totem had burned her palm, skin blistered, red, but she didn't let go until it cooled. Maria was trembling, not from fear now, but exhaustion. "It's over," she whispered. But then, the floor creaked beneath them. Not just a plank shifting, a deep sound, heavy, from far below. They both looked down. A dark spot was spreading beneath Maria's knees. At first, they thought it was blood, but it didn't shine. It didn't drip. It moved, like oil, alive, breathing. Maria jumped up. The stain followed, expanding in every direction like veins under the wooden floor. "What is that?" Aidanah asked. Then they both heard it. A heartbeat. Slow, deep, ancient. Thump, thump. The boards cracked suddenly. A sharp edge rose upward, then another. Maria grabbed Aidanah and pulled her back just in time as something began pushing up from under the floor. Not hands. Fingers. Thick, black, stretching like roots clawing toward the surface. Then a voice. From beneath the floor. Not a whisper, not a scream. A single word. Awake. The apartment shook. Bookshelves fell. The mirrors shattered completely. Windows cracked. Light bulbs burst one by one. They ran. Down the hall. Down the stairs. But every floor below was changing. Walls melted. Paint peeled backwards. Old wallpaper returned from beneath the plaster. The building wasn't falling apart. It was rewinding, returning to some old, buried version of itself. By the time they reached the ground floor, the hallway was no longer modern. It was 1920. Gas lamps, wooden panels, doors that hadn't been there for decades. And at the center, a large iron hatch in the floor, sealed shut with chains. It was pulsing, like a lung. Aidanah whispered, "This wasn't the real door." Maria nodded. It was the lock. And now, something under the building was trying to get out. The hatch beneath the sentry. The iron hatch groaned. Chains wrapped around it trembled like they were alive. Each link quivered with pressure, as though something massive beneath was pressing up, pushing, testing its strength. The hallway was soaked in the scent of wet earth and rust. Shadows clung to the walls like mold. Every gas lamp flickered with a rhythm that matched the heartbeat. Thump! 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 Maria stared at the hatch. Aidanah stepped closer. If it opens, this whole building, this whole city, won't survive. They both knew the truth. What came through the wardrobe was only a copy. But this was the original, the source. Whatever it was, it had been locked down here for over a century, buried under generations of walls, lies, and silence. How do we stop it? Aidanah whispered. Maria pulled Elias's journal page from her satchel. It was torn, water-damaged, but the ink still burned dark. At the bottom of the page, now visible thanks to the heat of the totem, new words had appeared. The lock must be turned by the blood of the mirror-born. Maria swallowed hard. The creature that mimicked her, the one Aidanah destroyed, had bled when it died. Some of that black blood was still on the totem, burned into its grooves. She reached for the heavy chains. Aidanah grabbed her arm. You're not thinking of going down there. Maria met her eyes. If we don't, this thing won't stay sealed. That was just the first breach. It'll keep trying. And eventually, it'll get out. Aidanah didn't argue. She simply stepped beside her and said, Then I'm going with you. The two of them gripped the rusted wheel at the center of the hatch. It was slick, freezing to the touch. As they turned it, the chains began to uncoil, like snakes hissing in reverse. The hatch popped loose. A rush of black fog spilled out, thick and hot, carrying a smell of rotting flowers and something older than memory. They descended slowly, rung by rung, into darkness. No lights, no sounds, only the sound of their breathing, and the heartbeat below. Thump, thump, thump. It was waiting, the final descent. The air grew thicker with every step. Maria and Aidanah climbed down the rusted ladder, their hands slick with sweat and dust, the black fog swallowing the light above them. They didn't speak. There were no words left to say. Beneath them was silence, not the silence of peace, but of something ancient, listening. Then, their feet touched solid ground. It was stone, old, wet, breathing. They stood in a narrow chamber, carved from black rock and lit only by a single flame burning without source, floating mid-air. Its light pulsed with the same beat they'd heard since the wardrobe opened. Thump! Thump! Ahead of them stood an altar, not for worship, but containment. Chains stretched from the walls, feeding into a central mass. A shape, a heart, huge, beating, covered in layers of melted faces and hands. Thousands of them, screaming silently, frozen in agony. This was it, the source, the creature's true body. Every whisper, every shadow, every fake smile, all threads woven from this thing. Maria stepped forward, raising the totem one last time. The heart pulsed violently. It knew her now, too, and it hated her. Aidanah grabbed her hand. You don't have to do this alone. Maria shook her head. No, I do. She stepped onto the altar. Voices rose from the ground, tugging at her mind, her memories, her pain, her regrets. but she gripped the totem tighter. "I remember who I am," she whispered, "and I'm not yours." With one swift motion, she drove the totem into the pulsing core. The chamber screamed. The fog collapsed. The chains snapped tight. The altar lit in blinding white. Aidanah shielded her eyes. Maria stood still, consumed in the light, her face calm. Then, silence. When Aidanah opened her eyes, she stood alone. The altar was empty. The heart was gone. And above her, the ladder reappeared, now glowing faintly. She climbed out slowly, back through the hatch, back into the hallway. Sunlight filtered through the broken windows. The building was still again. The wardrobe gone, Maria gone, but the whispers were no more. Aidanah stepped outside, blinking into the dawn. It was finally over. She would carry the memory. She would remember the one who stayed. The end.